I had just turned 56. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a steak dinner, a card from my son, Brian, something small from my wife, Denise. But this year, she said she had something special planned. "Just trust me," she told me that morning, all smiles. "We're going somewhere downtown." Dressed decent, I figured she found some overpriced spot with cloth napkins and a tiny menu. Fine by me. Free steak's free steak. When we pulled up to that place on Michigan Avenue, the one with the valet and the gold lettering out front, I already knew I was out of my element. The kind of place where you don't ask the price, because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Brian and his wife Liz were already at the table. He stood when he saw us, looked jittery. His eyes wouldn't stay still. Liz smiled too wide, then went back to sipping her wine like it was a job. Denise leaned in and gave me a kiss on the cheek. "Happy birthday, honey." Her voice was too sweet, too careful. She gets that way when she's trying to sell something. I didn't say anything, and just took my seat and grabbed the menu. Dinner started normal, small talk. Weather? Liz asked about a leak in our garage. Brian nodded like he cared. They gave me a new watch. Nice one, actually. Silver band, heavy, felt expensive. "We all pitched in," Brian said. "You deserve something nice for once." I laughed, rolled my eyes. "What, y'all win the lottery?" A few bites into my ribeye. Medium rare, just how I like it. Someone else walked in. Gray suit, leather shoes, serious face. Marvin Braddock. Now this guy? He's Denise's father. Old school rich. Real estate baron. Owns half of downtown Chicago. Puts his name on buildings like kids put stickers on lunchboxes. And he never shows up to stuff like this. Not birthdays, not weddings. Business only. He didn't greet anyone. Just pulled out the chair next to Liz, poured himself a whiskey, and looked straight at me. "How's the Lakehouse?" he asked. I blinked. "What Lakehouse?" Denise froze. Brian's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Liz set her wine glass down too fast and cracked the stem. Nobody said a word. Marvin turned to them, face like stone. "Then where did the money go?" I looked around the table. Denise's eyes were wide. Brian looked like he might puke. Liz opened her mouth, then shut it again. I just sat there with a bloody fork in my hand, staring, not even chewing. No one had warned me this wasn't a birthday dinner. Quick note: before we go any further, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't say anything on the drive home that night. Denise kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to explode, but I didn't. I didn't even look at her. I just stared straight ahead, hands tight on the wheel, trying to make sense of what the hell had just happened. The next morning, I went back to the same life I'd been dragging myself through for years. I've worked construction since I was 19. Started with demo, worked my way into full residential builds. I was good at it too. Solid hands, dependable, no bull. I had crews that trusted me, made decent money. Nothing crazy, but enough. Then, about 2 years back, the bottom fell out. Housing prices spiked, permits got slow, jobs dried up. I tried to hold on, took plumbing gigs, patch jobs, even painted a strip mall bathroom for $80 cash. I kept hustling, but it never felt like I was gaining ground. Denise and I were living in this 2-bedroom rental in Oak Lawn. Beige carpet, leaky sink, neighbors who argued through the walls. Every month felt like roulette. Sometimes we made rent, sometimes we were working something out with the landlord. Gas got shut off once for 3 days. We heated water on the stove. I thought that was just life. I figured, hell, we were scraping by like everybody else. Thought maybe we'd retire someday on what was left in my 401k, assuming we didn't die first from stress or cheap food. Denise worked part-time at some dentist's office. She was always helping with billing, which I guess means she sat behind the desk and printed invoices. She made just enough to cover groceries and maybe her cell phone bill. We drove a beat-up Toyota Corolla and a rusted-out Ford pickup with one working window and a heater that groaned like a dying animal. Meanwhile, her dad, Marvin, was basically royalty. The man owned more of Chicago than the city did. His name was on condos, commercial buildings, even a damn parking garage. Her cousins went to Harvard and Yale, drove Teslas, got married in Napa. We were the poor ones, the gritty ones, the ones who chose a simpler life. That's what Denise used to say. But Marvin never looked down on me. At least, I didn't think he did. Every time I saw him, he'd ask about my work, what tools I was using, what kind of siding I preferred. He never offered help, and I never asked. That was our deal. I earned mine. But now, looking back, I realize how much I ignored. Denise had a habit of getting surprise bonuses from work. Once she showed up with a Michael Kors purse, said the office gave it to her for covering extra shifts. Another time, she flew out to Arizona with her sister on credit card points. I didn't ask questions. Honestly, I was too tired to think much of it. And Brian? Kid was 28, working part-time IT help desk, and somehow rolled up in a brand new black SUV. He said it was a good deal he couldn't pass up. Same story when he and Liz went to Hawaii for their anniversary. Last-minute flight deal. I bought it. Hell, I wanted to believe they were just smart with money. They never invited me on those trips, not once. I told myself that was just how things were. Young people like their privacy. Denise said, "You hate flying anyway." True, I do. But still. I figured maybe Denise just managed things better than I thought. Maybe she was skimming coupons, finding deals, putting a little away here and there. I even complimented her once, said, "I don't know how you make it work." She smiled and said, "It's all in the details." Turns out it was. She wasn't budgeting. She was bleeding my account dry, and I didn't even know I had an account to bleed. Everything I busted my back for, every hour I spent freezing in half-finished basements or sweating through my clothes in July, was just a side hustle to her, a decoy, that Lakehouse Marvin mentioned, bought with my name on it, that business account, supposed to be mine, that cabin in Michigan, a getaway paid for with money meant for me. I didn't miss signs. I ignored them, like a damn fool, and now I was broke, and stolen from by my own wife and son. Marvin stood up, didn't even touch his drink, and said, "Let's take this in the back." No one argued. Denise moved like she was walking to her own funeral. Brian followed, stiff, pale. Liz looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. We went through a side door into this quiet little private room at the back of the restaurant. Dark wood walls, thick carpet, heavy doors. You could scream in there and no one would hear you. Waiting inside was a woman, black slacks, gray blouse, hair pinned tight. Tablet in hand, zero emotion on her face. "Carla," Marvin said, motioning to her. "She'll be handling the records." He sat down at the head of the table and pointed for everyone else to sit. Then another guy came in, older, silver suit, briefcase. "Dale Rivers," Marvin said. "My attorney." I just stood there for a second. Still hadn't even finished my damn steak, and now I was in a financial crime scene starring my wife. Marvin leaned forward. "This is business now." Dale opened the briefcase, pulled out a folder thick enough to choke a horse, and laid it in front of me. Paperwork, accounts, dates, withdrawals, asset transfers. "You know what this is?" Marvin asked. I shook my head. "No clue." "When you married Denise, I set up a long-term trust fund, quietly. I didn't tell you because it was meant to be yours when you turned 50. My way of giving my daughter some security and rewarding a man who worked hard." Carla tapped the tablet, flipped it around to show a chart. Lines, names, balances. She scrolled. "That fund had $3.2 million in it as of your 50th birthday," Marvin said, looking me dead in the eye. "You saw none of it. Know why?" He didn't wait for me to guess. "Because she took it. Your wife. Your son. They drained it piece by piece." My hands clenched on the table. I didn't look at Denise. I couldn't. I just stared at the paperwork while Carla slid it across to me. "Lakehouse, cabin, a shell business account tied to Brian's name," Marvin said, like he was reading a grocery list. Withdrawals for jewelry, luxury goods, travel. It's all in here. I finally looked up at Denise. "You knew?" I asked. She didn't answer, didn't even blink, just kept staring at her lap, knees pressed together like a kid waiting to get grounded. Brian stammered. "Dad, we thought we were helping. We wanted to protect." "Protect what?" I snapped. "You let me work 2 jobs through winters while you sat on my money?" He flinched, looked at Marvin like he wanted backup. None came. Marvin stayed ice cold. "We'll start figuring out what's going on," he said to Carla. "Get the records. We need answers." Denise let out this little gasp, like a balloon deflating. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she said, barely a whisper. "We were going to tell you. We just didn't know how." "You were going to tell me after you sold the Lakehouse?" I asked. "Or before?" Brian stood up, palms flat on the table. "Grandpa, don't do this." "It's family." Marvin looked at him like he was made of glass, then waved him off like trash. "You're damn right it's family." "Which is why it's worse," I turned to Dale. "So what now?" Dale cleared his throat. "This is fraud. Civil, maybe criminal, depending how it's handled. But Mr. Braddock's priority is restitution." "Not revenge," Carla chimed in, flipping screens on the tablet. "We can trace every transfer. The properties are in Denise's and Brian's names. The business account is under a joint LLC. We freeze and reclaim what we can, then assess damages." Brian slumped back down, face pale. Denise finally spoke up again, voice cracking. "I didn't know it'd get like this. We just wanted to keep the lifestyle going. I thought we'd replace it." "With what?" I cut in. "We don't have anything. We rent a house with a leaking roof, and you're out here buying cabins in Michigan." She looked at me for the first time, red eyes full of regret. But it was too late for that. "You lied every single day," I said, leaning in. "You kissed me goodnight with that money sitting in your account." Marvin stood. That was the end of the talk. "You two," he said, pointing at Denise and Brian, "are going to learn what consequences look like. You don't get to play house with someone else's money." Carla started gathering papers. Dale stood too. The message was clear. This was just beginning. I sat back, breath short, heart pounding. Not from rage, from betrayal. Like the bottom had dropped out, and I was just hanging there. I went home alone that night. Didn't say a word to Denise when we left the restaurant. She didn't ask to come with me either. Just followed Brian to his car and didn't look back. I pulled into the driveway, turned the truck off, and just sat there with my hands on the wheel. House looked different. Same broken porch light, same half-dead shrubs, but different. Like it wasn't mine anymore. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and went into the garage, sat on an old camping chair, and stared at the oil stains on the cement floor. Didn't cry, didn't curse, just sat there, quiet, while the beer went warm in my hand. After about an hour, I called my buddy Keith. Known him since high school. One of the only people I could trust to listen without talking too much. I told him everything, every damn word. He was quiet for a long time. Then he just said, "Damn, man." That was all, but it hit harder than anything else. The next morning, Marvin's people went full throttle. Carla sent 2 men to our house with laptops, scanners, and a list of passwords they didn't need to ask for. They already had access. She told me to stay out of the way and let them work. I sat in the living room while they pulled records, property titles, stock purchases, overseas transfers, luxury purchases disguised as business expenses. They found it all, Lakehouse in Denise's name, cabin in Brian's, brokerage accounts, crypto wallets, even a jewelry appraisal tied to a safety deposit box. All from that fund, every last piece of it, drained. Carla came by herself later that afternoon with a full breakdown. She sat at the kitchen table like it was a courtroom. "There's less than 100,000 left," she said. "Maybe a little more, depending what's recoverable." I just stared at her. "Out of 3.2 million?" She nodded. They started pulling large amounts around the time you turn 50. It accelerated last year. Vacations, renovations. Some cash was transferred into untraceable accounts. But we'll get most of it back. Eventually, I asked her one question. Did Marvin know? She shook her head. Not until Brian mentioned the Lakehouse tonight. I nodded and stood up. Walked out back and lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in 5 years. Didn't even like it. Just needed to burn something. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the fact that I'd been living like a broke man, counting grocery receipts, skipping dentist appointments, wearing the same boots until the soles peeled off. I had been out here working under-the-table plumbing jobs, scraping for cash while my own wife and son were living off my future. And they never said a word, never even offered to help. They just let me rot. All those nights I came home too tired to eat. Denise was probably looking at my bank balance from the couch. She let me carry guilt for not providing more, while she was buying throw pillows for a lake house I'd never even seen. I walked into the bedroom and looked at our wedding photo on the nightstand, picked it up, stared at it. I didn't feel heartbreak. I didn't feel rage. What I felt was dumber than all that. I felt stupid, and that's a hard thing to shake. 2 weeks later, we sat in Marvin's law office. Big glass windows, clean furniture, leather chairs that felt too soft. The kind of place where rich people ruin lives quietly. Dale Rivers sat at the far end of the table, a manila folder in front of him. Carla was beside him, tablet ready, glasses low on her nose. 2 other people I didn't know, probably auditors. I sat across from them, flanked by Denise and Brian. Denise looked awful. No makeup, hair flat, face drawn and puffy like she hadn't slept since the restaurant. She looked 20 years older than she did on my birthday. Couldn't even look at me. Brian kept bouncing his knee under the table, sweat stains under his arms. His voice cracked before he even said a word. Dale started without ceremony. Let's be clear. We want to settle this civilly, but if we have to file criminal charges, we will. Marvin sat quietly in the corner behind them, legs crossed, watching. He hadn't said a word since we walked in. Just sat there like a judge waiting for the gavel. Denise shifted in her seat. Brian opened his mouth, probably rehearsed something in the mirror. What came out was pathetic. We didn't mean harm, he said. We thought we were protecting the family's legacy. Dale didn't even blink. By stealing it? Carla turned her tablet around and started going down a list. Transfer dates, property titles, jewelry purchases, wire transfers to offshore accounts. Every number had a purpose. Every signature tied to one of them. No guesswork. I just want to know one thing, I said, loud enough to cut through the numbers. They all stopped talking. I looked straight at Denise. When were you planning to tell me? She didn't answer, just blinked fast and stared at the table. I worked every day, I said. And you let me. You let me clean gutters for gas money while you owned 2 homes, Brian tried to jump in. Dad, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I snapped. That's when Marvin finally stood up. He walked slow to the front of the room, planted his hands on the table, and looked at both of them like strangers. Here's the deal, he said. You transfer everything back, every house, every cent, the vehicles, the assets, the accounts. You sign it all over today. What can't be recovered, you owe, in writing, or I press charges. No one moved, no one even breathed. Then Denise nodded, barely. Brian followed. Okay, he mumbled. We'll sign. Carla turned back to her screen. Dale started flipping pages. They weren't given time to think, stall, or strategize. This was an execution. Dale slid the first document across the table. The Lakehouse. Denise signed without reading. Next one. Business account. Brian's hand shook as he signed. Dale didn't react. Next. Cabin in Michigan. They signed. On and on it went. Real estate, investment accounts, insurance policies. Carla didn't blink. Marvin didn't flinch. When it was all signed, Dale took the papers, stacked them, and stood. We'll file the ownership reversals today. Expect asset freezes to clear within 72 hours. You'll receive a repayment agreement next week. Non-negotiable, Denise whispered. Can I at least keep my car? Marvin didn't answer. He just looked at her like she had asked to borrow money after mugging him. Dale said, We'll see what the numbers say. I didn't say anything else. What was left to say? The woman I married had stolen my future. My son had helped her do it. And now they were sitting there, looking like scolded kids, heads down, no fight left. Marvin looked at me as I stood up, gave me the smallest nod. I left the law office with a manila envelope under my arm and no home to go back to. Denise had moved back into the rental, but I wasn't stepping foot in that house again, not after what she did. I packed what I needed that night, just clothes, tools, a few old photos, and walked out. Marvin called me the next morning. Got a spot open above Barrett's Hardware in Bridgeview. He said, 1 bedroom, not fancy, but it's clean. It was small. Low ceilings, no AC, windows that rattled when the wind blew. But it was mine. I didn't owe anyone a damn thing for it. The lease was in my name, the keys in my hand. Marvin paid the first 3 months up front. When I tried to push back, he waved it off. This isn't charity, he said. It's justice. He even lined up a job for me. Called in a favor with a contractor friend out in Tinley Park. Said I had a reputation for working hard and keeping my mouth shut. Showed up Monday and got hired by lunchtime. By week 2, I was running a small crew doing siding and drywall. Steady hours, good money, union benefits. No shady pay-under-the-table deals. No begging for extra shifts. Marvin didn't stop there. Start seeing someone, he said one night over dinner. You fix a roof when it leaks. Your head's no different. I'd never done therapy in my life. Never even thought about it. Growing up, you handled things by working through them or drinking through them. But I went. Once a week. First couple sessions, I sat there with my arms crossed, barely spoke, just nodded and waited for the hour to pass. But then something shifted. Little things, like how I kept replaying that damn birthday dinner in my head, or how I still felt guilty for missing signs that were never mine to catch. The therapist said, you got robbed. Emotionally and financially. That doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. Hearing it out loud helped. I stopped blaming myself. Stopped wondering if I could have fixed it all by working harder, or being nicer, or paying more attention. I started sleeping again. No more waking up in cold sweats thinking about bank statements or Denise's fake smiles. I got into a rhythm. Wake up early, work, shower, dinner. Sometimes I'd walk to the bar on the corner and play darts with the same old guys every Thursday night. Nobody asked questions. Nobody looked at me with pity. Every Friday, I'd swing by the hardware store downstairs and grab something small for the apartment. A plunger, a shelf bracket, new light bulbs. Slowly, I was rebuilding a life. It wasn't big, it wasn't flashy, but it was honest. And after everything I'd been through, honest was more than enough. One night after work, I came home to a voicemail from Marie, Denise's sister. I hadn't heard from her since the birthday dinner disaster. Thought maybe she was just another one of them circling the wagons, pretending Denise hadn't gutted our marriage from the inside out. But her voice was quiet, honest. I knew something was off, she said. I'm sorry. I didn't know how deep it went. She didn't try to defend her, didn't excuse Brian either. Just said what I'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to say. You didn't deserve that. Most of Denise's family wasn't so level-headed. Her cousin Carol told mutual friends I was being dramatic. Her uncle said I should take it like a man. As if being stolen from by your own wife was just a rough patch in a normal marriage. They acted like I should be thankful they didn't steal more. I stopped answering calls, didn't need their pity, didn't need their excuses. Marvin didn't say much about the family divide. But I could tell it bothered him. He made it official the next week, transferred everything into a new trust, locked tight, with me as the only beneficiary. Denise was cut off entirely, Brian too. Clean break, he said. You rebuild now. Your name, your rules. Then he hit me with something I didn't expect. You ever think about going out on your own? He asked. I shrugged. Maybe someday. Why not now? He said. You've got the tools. Got the know-how. I'll help you get started. He wasn't kidding. Next day, he had one of his financial guys draw up a plan for a small handyman business. Local work, low overhead, and my name at the top. I didn't say yes right away. But just knowing someone believed I could own something after all that had been taken, that meant more than any check ever could. Brian never called, never texted. I heard through a buddy of his that he'd lost his job a week after the meeting. Word got out about the money. The kind of scandal that doesn't just stain your name, it poisons it. Funny thing, Claire reached out. Denise's niece. 22, just finished college, always polite but distant. She sent me a message on Facebook, said, I never understood how Uncle Brian could afford what he had. I always thought you were just proud and private. Turns out, you were broke because they made you broke. That one hit deep. We started talking after that. Nothing crazy, just messages here and there, phone calls about life, about family, about the ways people disappoint you when you least expect it. She asked questions no one else dared to. Now we talk every few days. She checks in, sends photos of her dog, asks how work's going, might even call her a friend now. 3 months later, she called. I hadn't saved her number, but I knew the voice the second she said my name. Soft, careful. Like she thought I might hang up before she finished the sentence. Can we meet? She asked. Please, just talk. I should have said no. But I didn't. We met at this diner off Cicero. The kind of place where the booths are cracked and the coffee's been sitting on the burner since 6 a.m. She picked it. I think she wanted someplace quiet, someplace sad. She was already there when I walked in. Hoodie, no makeup, some cheap purse clutched in both hands like it was holding her together. She looked rough, eyes swollen, hair in a loose knot. I almost didn't recognize her. I sat down across from her, didn't order anything. She looked up, tried to smile, then gave up. I messed up, she said. You think? I said, folding my arms. She stared at the table. I had a problem with money, spending, control. I didn't think it would go that far. I didn't say anything. She went on. Brian thought if we kept things tight, made you feel like things were always short, you'd never ask questions. That one hit me harder than anything Marvin ever said. Harder than the audits or the empty accounts or the betrayal. They didn't just take my money. They played me, manipulated me, made me doubt my own gut. So you lied, I said. On purpose. For years she nodded. No fight left. We thought we'd figure it out before it got out of hand. Out of hand? I snapped. You drained a fund meant to keep me afloat for the rest of my life. You had me fixing toilets for cash while you were sipping cocktails at the lake. She didn't defend it, just wiped her nose and said, I want to make things right. You can't, I said. She looked up, startled. I mean, I'll pay back what I can. Get a second job. No, I said. You can't fix this. But you can live with the consequences, same as I had to. She looked at me like she didn't understand, like she thought this meeting was going to end with forgiveness, maybe a hug, but that version of us was dead. I lost my husband, she whispered. No, I said, standing. You threw him away. The waitress came by with the check for her coffee. She didn't touch it, just sat there, crying into her cup like it might give her an answer. I left cash on the table, turned, and walked out without another word. Let her sit in it. Let her feel what I lived with every day for years. The weight of knowing you gave everything to someone who never deserved it. The sky was overcast the day I hung the sign. Braddock Home Repairs. Honest work, no bull. I stood on the sidewalk with a wrench in one hand and coffee in the other, staring up at it while one of my guys cleaned up the work van. Marvin helped with the startup. Quiet loan, no strings. I paid him back last month. 1 year. That's what it took. Now I've got 3 solid guys working under me. We do kitchens, decks, electrical, roofing, whatever pays. Clients trust me. Word gets around. Business is good. I live in a 2-bedroom condo now. New appliances, hardwood floors, paid in full. I furnished it myself. Nothing flashy, but it's mine. Every chair, every cabinet, every damn light bulb. No one else's name on a single thing. Sometimes Claire drops by, brings leftover cookies from her office, talks about her job, her life. Just friends. Maybe more someday. No pressure. She listens, actually listens, and she never once made me feel small. Brian hasn't called since the legal meeting. I heard he's still living in that rental with Denise. They're deep in debt now. Payments on assets they no longer own. Still out of Marvin's will. That part wasn't temporary. Marvin made it clear they had their chance. I never pressed charges. Didn't need to. They feel it every day. The weight, the silence, the emptiness of everything they gambled away. They live in the mess they made, not knowing when the next bill will break them. My therapist? Yeah, I still go. Says what I did wasn't revenge. She calls it justice. I'm not sure I buy that. Justice sounds clean. This was messy, ugly, slow, and it didn't fix what they broke. But it gave me back something I forgot I'd lost. My name, my pride, my peace. I don't walk around angry anymore. I don't lie awake wondering if I missed a red flag or should have asked more questions. That man's gone. I buried him, along with every apology they never earned. Now, I wake up early, make my coffee, lace up my boots, and get to work. No secrets, no shame. I look in the mirror and see someone I can stand to be. And at night, when the tools are packed away and the day's done, I sleep like a man who knows exactly where he stands. And that, after everything, is enough for me.